you all had a chance to see it before we post it and have everybody else see it. That took us a couple of hours to record and tape it, and it was condensed very short to a very short video. And first of all, I just want to thank you all for participating in our first virtual conversation. And I'll just give you a little bit of background, and Tony, feel free to jump in, how the idea came to mind. First of all, it was just in conversation because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I
Yeah.
just brought the attention, to Tony, reminded her, and I was like, well, we should do something, I don't know, a blog or a post or something. And from just that one idea, she's like, well, let's do a video. And I was like, how are we going to do a video? But it's something how we both started thinking and writing and coming together. And it just started blossoming, as far as, okay, why don't you talk to this person? Why don't you talk to that person? And then over the time when we started working on the video, we believe it was God that just gave it to us as far as to do a wellness project for the whole year. So the first phase that you all saw was the video part. And the second phase, which you all are part of, are virtual conversations. And these are conversations we would like to have monthly. And this is our first one. And it's just conversations to offer hope to people that may be dealing with mental health challenges and to feel comfortable enough to talk openly about mental health, because we know it is a very sensitive subject matter. We totally understand that, and we respect that because everybody is not there. So we totally respect that. The phase 3 of the project is me and Tony decided to work on a book together. That way we can share with others how our journey has been as far as our mental health background, because our journeys have been different. There are some things Tony went through that I didn't go through. Some things I went through, she didn't go through. So that's good to show other people that going through this journey of healing and journey of wellness, it can be different for some people. And also, one thing that I brought up to Tony, this is actually my 7-year anniversary, because 7 years ago, I was in the hospital. And the first time I went in the hospital, my first diagnosis that I received was major depression. And the second diagnosis that I received was bipolar. And then a year later, when I went for my year evaluation, they added PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And I'll be honest with you, the way we were raised in a very religious family where we didn't really talk openly about mental health. We didn't talk openly about medication. And I was totally against it. I was totally against medication and treatment. But what I was going through and the things that I went through in life, because at that time I was 33, I went through a lot of trauma growing up, and I did not address it. And I did not get the right therapy that I should have gotten. And at that time, going through more therapy, that is what caused me to go to the hospital. So, as I said, this is my 7th year anniversary in celebration. So, I am really proud of myself that God supported me with positive family, positive friends to show me love, to accept me, and just embrace me on this journey, because I could not have did this journey by myself. And then even having an older sister with some of the experiences that she went through, it was like, wow, okay, so I'm not in this by myself. And so, Tony, I don't know if you want to jump in and just share how was it for you, because it was a different time for you.
Sure. 10 years ago versus 15 years ago versus 20 versus 25 years ago, the landscape is very, very different. And so 25 years ago, 26 and a half years ago was when it actually happened. Things were very different. And so the type of care that people are giving nowadays was very different than it was back then. And so for me, this was like I didn't know anybody who had talked about mental health. And no one talked about hallucinations or medication or anything. And a lot of it for years and years and years and years and years, up until probably about 2004, 2005, I lived hidden in shame. And so if you can understand where you have this thing where you know you take medication for insulin, but you don't want nobody to know, so you do this when you things like that.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like that was what 15 years of just, you know, this is my thing. I'm gonna take care of it my way, and doing it that way, there was a lack of connection. So for me, I went through things like being over medicated. I went through things like unnecessary trauma in the ward itself because I didn't have an advocate. And so when you don't have an advocate, sometimes things can happen that, you know, your family's like, oh, well, we'll sign off on that. When in fact, if you had an advocate, someone could say, you know what? Have you read this girl's chart? Do you even know anything about her? And for example, in 2005, I was over medicated. And through the process of being over medicated, I had someone to actually talk to me and share with me. She says, you know, your dosage of this medication is like off the charts. And through all of the experiences that I've had, I can definitely relate to Teese in just sharing that God supported me. He didn't let me get, you know, have an overdose or anything like that. Nothing drastic happened in terms of that. And it could have happened. Something could have happened along the way. And I remember, when I wanted to be out of the hospital, and this is where when advocacy comes into play. It was right around Lincoln's birthday, and I never forget. It was right after my dad passed away, and I was put in the hospital for my own good. But it was completely like once I got there, I was under the care of a doctor who knew nothing about me. He didn't know anything about my business, didn't know anything about my aspirations or anything. And so because I didn't have insurance, and insurance makes the difference. I'm not sure if you
It does.
understand that, but
Yes.
insurance makes the difference. If you don't have insurance, literally you could be locked away somewhere and you just in there until someone feel like taking you out. And so we had insurance when I first went into that system. And then over the course of a matter of days, we lost our insurance. And so instead of me receiving the similar care that I was receiving, I was taken from one facility to another facility. And I can't name that facility because they probably sue, but that's okay. It was it was one of the worst facilities in the county, and we'll just leave it at that. But I'll tell you, the only way that I was able to come out of that was by the power of God. Because you weren't getting out of there until someone was like, oh, wait a minute, how long you been up in here? Oh, we probably should let her go, right? But what happened was I had a social worker, I'll never forget her. And it was right before Lincoln's birthday. And she realized that what the symptoms I was exhibiting were not mental challenges, it was grieving. My father had just passed away.
Yes.
And so she says, you know what? We need to get you up out of here so you can go grieve. And I was like, yeah. And so I'll never forget, she actually we had a team meeting, and she is the one who went to bat for me when no one else could go to bat for me because she knew the language and could talk the language on my behalf. So that's basically my story. I have not I thank God that even though me and Teese, our stories are different, I don't fault that. I don't say, oh wow, why couldn't it have been a little easier for me? Why couldn't it, I don't fault it at all. I feel like God put us both on this journey, and there's a message and a meaning behind all of it. So that's my story.
Yeah.
But you
And
know what?
that's so, go
That's
ahead.
really good. That's really good, Tony and TC, because I know that one, there's a common thread that I'm hearing, and I see a lot too, with just making sure mental wellness stays in the forefront. But the common thread that we see a lot is trauma. The trauma that we experience when it's when we don't take care of it and we don't address the trauma, it leads to other things, because we see it a lot. The students come to us experiencing so much trauma, and they don't get treated for it, and then it festers and it grows and grows, and then we see that turn into something that could hinder their overall well-being. But I mean, these are some good stories that I'm glad you all are sharing, and I wish we could put this on a larger platform so that parents can see that when your children are going through trauma, you have to treat it. You have to take care of that trauma, because it's going to fester and turn into something bigger than what you anticipated. But kudos to you all for telling this story, because this needs to be told. This is good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. And honestly, we just want to open this time up. If you all have any questions for me and Tony, any questions about the video, any questions about any of the experiences that we went through, or if you want to share as far as anything that you may have experienced, or if you know as far as a family member, or if this is new to you, because this is a sensitive subject matter, and we understand it's going to take people some time to talk openly about it. And that's one objective we hope, is that people can see this and say, you know what, maybe I can talk to this with my aunts. Maybe I can talk to this with my small church group. Maybe I can talk to this, talk about this amongst my nieces and nephews. So we hope that an open dialogue can be started from this. So, I mean, if there's any questions, anything, or comments anyone would like to share.
Yeah, I got a question. I know that Nita, you work in the counseling profession, I believe.
Yes.
Do you see an increase in like the family involvement when it comes to family counseling and getting those interventions? Is there an increase, or do you still see a resistance from the family members joining in on those counseling sessions?
Well, over the years, there's been an increase due to mental health getting out there. You have a lot of stars now that has mental illness. You have Angela Jolie that has admitted to certain depression, but a lot of stars have. So what we do, we try to, sometimes we tell that you're not alone. You're not, because of the stereotype of mental health. You want to tell them that other people have come out with it, and so you want them to speak out on it. And so a lot of times with families, a lot of times they don't know about how to treat mental illness because they don't know anything about it. And so we also give them information to help them, even facilitate the treatment for their loved one when they, come back and out of the facility, what have you. So a lot of them, they don't know how, but I have seen an increase over the years. I've been in mental health now for the last 15 years. And I would say with the last 5 years, there's been an increase in families from different races coming forth that, that need mental health treatment.
Awesome.
That's good.
I personally just first just thank you both. I commend you so much for picking up the torch, bringing it to the forefront, because it's so much connected to mental illness. And over the years, it's a stigma attached to it, as if you can't talk about it. You've got to be in the back room, in the closet. And nowadays, I thank God for persons like you who is putting it out on the forefront, because it is real and we suffer from it, and we suffer in silence. I know, coming from my family background, kind of similar to most of yours, due to our religion and how we were raised and taught, you just don't talk about some things. You might go to the doctor, or you might get seen, but it's just something you don't share. But the
Right.
thing about that, I personally have a torch in it. I was married to a man who had PTSD, so I lived with it and I saw it up front. And it's just as severe as having COPD or being diabetic. It's real. And the thing about if you're married to it, it's in your family, you're connected to it. So you're not suffering by yourself. It affects the entire family unit. And the unfortunate piece is, first, we got to be able to recognize that something's wrong. We may not always understand what it may be. So first we have to recognize that there is a problem, and then not have that fear, that myth, or that stigma to go forth and get the help. And then you guys spoke to the fact, and I have to have a background in hospital finance. And the unfortunate piece is, sometimes you can have the insurance to get the help you need, but the professionals may not have that compassion component to truly give you the accurate care that you need. You know, when you spoke on just being medicated and not really getting to know the person, to know exactly what they need, this is still happening today, and people suffer from this. And if there is not the appropriate advocacy to speak out, to say what is going on, it's a cycle that continues to go on and is not broken. I'm so grateful for this topic and what you guys are doing. We do have a family member who has some diagnosis going on, and just no later than maybe a month ago, I saw some unusual post out on Facebook, and I was like, something's not quite right. I wasn't, you just didn't know what it was. So just reached out to another family member. I said, hey, have you talked to such and such? You might want to check on him, because it didn't seem right. And praise God that I didn't have the fear to reach out, because sometimes you don't want to say anything, but they checked on him, and he was inpatient, and I think he's inpatient now. So I'm just thanking God that he was able to get the treatment. So it's so many components to this mental illness piece. And even I'll share a little bit, a story about myself. I live in Falling Waters, West Virginia, and it's like in the panhandle between Virginia and Maryland. So I was commuting daily to Baltimore to work. And I commuted, guys, I would say it was at least an hour and a half commute one way. And I did this for like 4 or 5 years when I first relocated up here. So I'm just going about my own life, own day, not understanding that, Tamiko, you may be a little tired, but so disconnected and not living until I was just this hamster on a wheel. And someone at work on my job said, Tamiko, you might want to go and talk to someone. I'm like, what do you mean talk to someone? I'm good. But did not know that was the best intervention that I could have ever had in my life. It's priceless. Dr. Carson, I lift her and celebrate her. And I tell you, I took some time away. I had some issues going on, and I thank God. She was like, you tired. You got to get off this road. So it was so wonderful for someone else to see something going on and not having that fear, not having that stigma of reaching out and saying, it's okay, but here's a number. Go talk to this person. So I commend you all. I'm so happy, and I celebrate you for sharing your story and being transparent, so we can have a platform to share and reach out and help others. Because I do know it's still a fight, but it's not as bad as what it was, say, 20 or 25 years ago. So kudos to you all for sharing. Kudos. So grateful.
And thank you so much, just for being a part of this and for sharing. We definitely want you all, family and friends, to be a part of this journey too. So thank you all. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I always try to sit in the background because I like to talk, and I get started, and it's like, but just the same stuff that's been said already. Big things that stood out to me. I was just talking about stereotypes, and one thing I say is that stereotypes exist where ignorance resides. In other words, because we don't know about something, right? If
Yes.
you are in the North, you have a stereotype about what Southerners are, vice versa. If you're in the South and then you meet someone from the South, it's like, oh, you know, I all thought y'all talk the same way. So again, on that same note with stereotypes is the thing of sensitive subjects. Sensitive subjects are sensitive or taboo, right? That's that other word we use because we don't or can't talk about it, right? We can't talk about mental health. We don't talk about this stuff. We shouldn't talk about that. And the only way to get that knowledge and to grow from these things is to know, right? If you don't have knowledge about what you're talking about, what you think, you can't even process your thoughts on something that you have no idea what it is. And this right here is what it's all about. I've been a part of other projects like this and interviews where I love it. Any chance I get an opportunity, I love it, just to give that one way we break this down and keep pushing it forward is to create a safe space and place for these conversations to go on. And so that's one thing I think is awesome. And sisters, back to y'all with the video, Tony and Tease. First of all, I commend y'all. That's awesome. I love what y'all doing. Even the phases, the video, the virtual conversations, and then the book. It's like, you know, it's like a process, and y'all have a well-oiled machine going. But things that stood out to me, y'all gave light on a lot of stuff. That insurance, that's a huge thing. And with my sister, she's in counseling. She knows that, and I'm a life coach. And so I work with counselors, and I have to, you know, outsource to counselors or therapists. And so insurance is huge. In fact, my wife, Felicia, and I were watching a documentary just yesterday on a lot of the obstacles and hurdles with insurance and mental health today. With because you put the bunny ears up when you said the professionals, right? The professionals that say, hey, you don't need this. Or Tony, as you mentioned, you need this, you need that. You know, it's this quick fix where it's a process to get that healing. Fear, I saw that fear, guilt, not being able to talk about it again. It's taboo. That shame. But then I love the hope in there. I love the fact that y'all had everyday activities going on while talking about this sensitive subject, right? Because that's how mental health works, right? It doesn't stop. These thoughts don't stop because you gotta cook or wash some dishes or get your children ready, go to school, go to work. It's still there. So this issue of mental health or mental issues, period, it's a process that's going. So the fact that y'all were out in the yard and doing all this is awesome, because I think it drives that idea home that whether you pay attention to it or not, it's going to be there.
Yeah.
So the quicker you can, I think it's important. And then just the one thing that stood out to me too is that part of having, I call it an anchor with my coaching, having that anchor in there to help you through things. So that music, art, that was two things that y'all talked about. But if people can have music, art, writing, anything like that, it's beautiful. So I love that. And yeah, so that was just me. I take notes because that's how I work. I take notes. So I have to go back and look because I got to keep myself on track too, because I like to talk. But that's just my thoughts on it. I love it. I think it's a beautiful thing. And as someone mentioned already, I love the minute y'all put this out there, I'm sharing, you know, and not just sharing, but inboxing it to people that I think it will help, because there are a lot of people. If you're going through anything, whether it's mental health, work, whatever it is in life, the hardest part is knowing that you're not alone. As Princess said, you always think that, you know, I can't talk to family because we don't talk about this stuff, or I can't get the help because nobody else is having this issue, right? No matter the fact that we know other people are having it, we still have that. That's kind of a part of having problems or issues. We don't see the fact that, hey, you know, somebody else, probably a neighbor, is dealing with the same thing, but we don't talk about it. So I love this. Congrats to you all. And I love what I see and what's going on. And like I said, I think change is happening just because of things like this. More conversations are being had. More projects like this are happening every day. So, yep, that's my time. I'm done.
I wanted to say something about some of the symptoms, if I could share that, if you don't mind.
Please.
And one of the reasons why I said that is a lot of times what I see and I hear that people, they don't recognize that they have something. especially the church world, especially Christian world, a lot of times because, you know, we're going to do different things. Why I went into mental health, I have a story as well. I used to suffer with major depression really bad. And the prayers of my mom, there's times when she would just pray and, you know, and tell me who I was going to become one day. However, during those times, I started suffering with it after I had teenage pregnancy. I got pregnant when I was a teenager. And so therefore, I started suffering with it. And it is something traumatic or something that happens and you can't deal with it in a normal manner, or you can't talk about it, certain things, how you felt. I became a teenage pregnant mom back in the early 80s. Also being a pastor's daughter, you know, and so in the early 80s, that was just taboo. What are you doing? You know, and even back then they wanted to put the people away, the children that would become pregnant. And so it was very difficult to deal with a situation like that. And so I spiraled down into suffering with that. And even over the years, there's times I know how to recognize the symptoms and different coping strategies and all of those things. But one of the things that I hear people say is that, you know, I nothing is wrong with me. However, if you feel like one of the main symptoms is if you used to do something that you love doing, but all of a sudden you just don't feel like doing it anymore. For instance, if you love singing, you know, and you know, you just don't care. You don't care about singing anymore. You're not feeling it. You just don't want to do it. And you just love singing. I mean, every time you wake up, you get in the shower and you just singing, and, you know, and every chance you get, you singing, they hear it everywhere you go. And then all of a sudden you're not doing those things. You're not singing like you used to sing. You might want to recognize that there's something's going on, something that you haven't brought to surface to deal with. And so though that's one of the symptoms that people don't talk about. And I tell people, so if something has happened and you know, and you have experienced grief, or you have experienced something traumatic, that, you know, recognizing that I just don't feel like doing nothing. I don't feel like getting out of bed. I don't, you know, I don't feel like visiting a person that's outgoing, and all of a sudden I don't feel like being around people. That loneliness, that, you know, wanting to isolate, all of those things, those are symptoms. That sadness that you just can't shake, that the feeling of just, no matter what happens, you still feel those same feelings, and it just it over and over and over again. Those are some of the symptoms of depression that a lot of people aren't aware of. And that's what I want to just say, that, you know, since major depression was one of the symptoms, I wanted to just bring that to forefront, that those are times when you need to seek help, when you feel yourself going through those different changes.
And I'm so glad you said that, because with the current events that's going on right now, the pandemic, just issues, what's going on, racism, what's going on with job loss and grief, people might not realize that these current events are affecting mental health.
Yes.
And like I said, with the symptoms, with a lot of people losing their jobs, they don't want to get out the bed, they're scared to go outside, they don't even want to change clothes. Those are symptoms that they are feeling. And they don't even recognize, like, okay, why am I feeling like this? And then now that they're starting to open up everything, the stores are starting to open up, you're going to have people dealing with anxiety and fear, and
Yes.
scared to go to the stores, and scared, okay, well, is it safe for me to go to Walmart? Is it safe for me to go to the mall? And those are realistic things. And if we just want to touch on that, like how are we feeling with these social issues that are going on and how it's affecting mental health? Anyone want to jump in?
Yeah, I think that a lot of us, I know, me personally, I'm feeling a lot of anxiety because of not knowing how long this is going to go. just specifically, not even the protesting that we're seeing, but just with the pandemic itself. Just wondering, are we going to get our schools back open? Are our children going to get their sense of innocence back and normalcy back? Just really with me, my heart right now is just really concerned about what this is going to do for our future generations. So my concern as a parent, as a administrator, as a human being is, what toll is this going to take on the mental wealth of our children? Because a lot of us are not looking at their feelings, and trust me, our children, they're seeing what's going on in the world. They're feeling a certain type of way. I mean, just our 2020 graduates, they feel like a bit of their educational journey has been ripped away because they were not able to have a traditional celebration, a traditional graduation. So my heart is feeling a little anxious on what we can do to really help our children understand, especially those children who might be vulnerable with having already pre-existing mental illnesses. So that's where my concern is, and that's where my anxiety is right now. So I'm just really trying to get the word out to parents, just giving them some type of support on what they can do at home. Some support. I've put out some videos to our parents within our school district, just giving them some support on what they can do to at least keep the line of education going with our children, so we don't see such a decrease in their skill level. So that's where my concern is with our children.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And that's really important, because children, they don't know how to express what they're feeling. They may act up in their behaviors. They may cry a lot. They may, stand under the covers, or just they don't want to play. And you wonder, like, okay, what's going on? They can't really express to you that they're scared to go outside. They're scared, and they're sad they cannot see their friends anymore, those routines of activities. So it's good that you address that with the children.
And not just like our children, meaning the little ones, but I mean like even our young adults. Our young adults, our 18, 19, 20-year-olds, our young adults, those are the ones that we really got to keep checking on, reach out to. Mike, you're doing an awesome job with working with that population, because they need you.
Yeah.
They need a younger person who can talk to them and really connect with them. I had a colleague of mine whose nephew actually committed suicide last week, and he's only 20 years old. So, I mean, that is where my heart is just really wanting to pour into making sure that our young people understand that there is a tomorrow, number one. We will get through this. And I think that the more we talk to them about it, Mike, the more you reach out. Mike knows BJ watches his daily post every morning. So, and he's only 13. So, I mean, you're reaching the teenagers. So I think that the more of that we do, the better, the more we're going to be able to reach them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that man, I love that too, because I think that's important. When you were talking about that, Tease, and when you chimed in as well, Nina, with that's the important thing right now that I think we have to look at. Tease, you went into with everything going on. Just if we look outside, right? Let's say turn on the TV, we look outside with everything going on with social injustices and racism, anything. That's the lens that we need to remember. We as adults, or we as people not affected, it's easy for us to get in a place where we assume or we judge what we're seeing, right? We're not there. But we're talking about one thing that I just wrote that down, because it's like, that's it right there. Children not really knowing how to express what they are feeling. That doesn't stop at 12, 16.
Right.
This is even into
That's
your
true.
young adult years, when you're still formulating your adult mind, your adult brain, your adult body. So let's say up until at least 25 years old. So when we're turning on the TV and we're seeing this narrative of, oh, this is going on, that's these people, blah, blah, we're talking about the youth. We're talking about the youth. If you look in, you zoom in with your eyes and see these are young people. These are
Mhm.
young people that are expressing something that's going on that they don't particularly have that space. They don't know how I'm going to express this. So now
Mhm.
someone does this. I may not normally do this action. I may not normally join in on something that's chaotic and not peaceful, but I'm right here. It's next to me. We all know that at the age they're so easily be influenced. So I must need to do it as well. So I think that's one thing too to keep in mind when we're seeing this thing, and that's why it's my heart I always will have a passion and heart for the youth because they're influenced by so much. Y'all, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Snapchat, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, you name it. And so I see what the youth are being constantly fed, and it ain't all good. And so that's why I have to make sure that I combat, I say all the time in my videos, my mission is to share my light, love, and positivity because I want to combat that darkness. I want to combat that hate. I want to combat that negativity. So that's everything is strategic. And that's what I think we need to keep in mind in terms of when we're seeing everything that's going on. We need to know that, hey, these are our children, no matter the color, these are our children. So before we just put this negative cover on everything they're doing, we need to be creating that space to say, okay, I guarantee you most times you ask these kids as they're out in the streets, nobody's listening. I can't talk to anybody. I can't talk to my teacher. I can't talk to my pastor. I can't talk to my mom, my dad. So I think that's important moving forward.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think one of the things that Teese and I had talked about, it was some time ago, I had shared with her that sometimes people say, well, you're always so happy with your art. Your art's always so shiny. It's always so uplifting. And when you said combat the darkness, Mike, that's totally where I'm at. Because I've been through some dark stuff. I've seen some dark stuff. So I don't want to repeat any of that on my canvas. My canvas is my sacred space. And so when, especially the part in the video when it says art literally saved my life, I remember being in a facility and no one knew I was an artist. Who was going to ask? Like, what do you do? I was an artist. And one of the social, this is why it's so important in whatever role you play that role with compassion. Because you never know who you're going to touch. And that the social worker actually looked at my chart and found out I was an artist and never said anything, but the next day he came with a sketchbook and he gave me that sketchbook. We were in group and I was like, what's this? He said, look, I know you. I got you. I got you pegged. Right here's your sketchbook. That was my lifeline. And so as we wrap up, I just want to share that everybody in this group, we all have a role to play. Whether that's the cheerleader, an uplifter, a promoter, a server, whatever role we have to play that role with compassion. Because you never know, you just never know who you're going to touch. So I thank you all. I thank all of you for being here because every single one of you all could have said, nah, I got stuff to do. I got to go listen to Fred Hammond and Kirk Franklin.
Yeah.
Wait, that's tonight? Is that tonight?
Oh yeah, it started at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. It's probably almost over. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be on YouTube.
Oh,
See, Tony, we are that people.
Yeah.
So I thank you all so much. If there are any short closing remarks before we end.
Tony, I'd like to say just a couple of things because I'm kind of quiet, but I appreciate you inviting me. And I've had many experiences that involve loss and grief on my own end, but I've also tried to be supportive of others that I've seen that have had that as well. So whether I've had multiple miscarriages and, losses of family members, losses of dreams that I had to say, well, I'm not in control, God's in control. So when I realized that, then I could be more positive, and not be thinking that I failed in some way or didn't achieve, because I'm an overachiever. And I always solve things by achieving or, trying to work on stuff. And so when I put God in control and changed my attitude to an attitude of gratitude, that helped immensely, and to be more compassionate to others that I've seen that have battled with either bipolar or suicidal thoughts or different things in my life that I've been in relationship with. So, and I appreciate this. My church actually did a first aid, mental health first aid training. And so and I've also attended the NAMI groups for support. So anywhere anybody can reach out to public groups like that, I think it's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I'll in the car as I started it. It's probably time for me to speak, right? So I was quiet, but I wrote a lot of stuff down. I'm a quiet person, but I write a lot. But no, it was good. As a sibling, it was good for somebody, I guess you could say, on the outside looking in, because this is even good for family members, to pay attention. Because I learned stuff. Granted, I was a teenager, some of that I was a teenager, some of it I was an adult, but a lot of it I didn't know. So it's good, and it's good for people to know how to pay attention to signs or just know what's going on. So
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Awesome.
And thank you.
Thank you all so much.
I love what he just said, and I want to just say to him, he has such an awesome voice. And when you sing, that's one of the things that can make people feel better. I have had groups where people come in with major depression, and I'm telling you, we do a music therapy group. And I'm telling you, it has been statistic studies that music changes the mood. So I want to just say to you to just sing, and everybody else on here, sing. I mean, because it makes a difference. Do you hear me? It makes a difference when I've seen the beats tame in group. I've seen the beats where we did a music therapy. They come in one way, but they leave out happy. They leave out and in a couple of days they leave. So I say that to say that music, it does that. Artistic, I love it. The art, it does that. And even when we do that with our children, seeing what do you like to do? Because some of them do you like art? If there's singing, or if some of our kids are, whatever that your kid like to do, to do those things with them and encourage them to do those things, that even helps them. And listening to positive music. It's a lot of music out here is not as positive sometimes, but listen to positive music. It helps. All of those things, the artistic realms, period. It helps. And even us, it helps. I had COVID-19, to make a long story short, dancing and music, it helped me. I'm telling you, it works. Music, it does something to people. And so I just wanted to just encourage that artistics, and when you don't feel like doing anything else, turn on some, positive. I want to just put that out there. Positive music. All right.
Thanks, cousin.
Yeah. That is so true. That right there, that music, I can say that has helped me many, many days. Different days, I wake up to music. I go to sleep to music. It's something about the lyrics, something about the instruments, something about the wording when it all comes together. It's just like in the Bible with David and Saul, and how that music just calms. So I'm a witness that music is healing in music. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, before we end, I just want to let everybody know that please follow our blog. The blog is Antonia Rupert /blog. And we will be putting this conversation up on our blog, as well as our first official our first official video will be on our blog, and people can
And YouTube.
and YouTube.
On YouTube.
We're on YouTube. As soon as we end, I'll work on uploading these items. But look, guys, thank you so much. This
Oh,
is
can I say one thing?
Okay.
Is it okay? I like your cup, Michael. Is it okay that when she uploads it to Facebook, would anyone like to be tagged in it so it can show up on your Facebook page? Is that anyone?
That would be great.
Okay.
All right, cool.
Sure, I'm signing my release right here. There we go. Love it.
And then one takeaway as far as coming up with solutions to problems, because we know this is a much bigger picture and it's going to take multiple conversations, is that if we could start off small, we're just having conversations within our own community, as far as mental health and mental wellness, so that people can put a face to it and say, you know what, it is okay to talk about it. And that's why we did the differencing. It's okay to talk about it in the backyard, in the kitchen, when you're at home, in a small setting like this. Leaders in your community, as you mentor people, we can help to develop leaders, so that leaders, because we know the leaders, they're the ones that make the rules and they make the laws. And we need more positive people in leadership, as you can see. And I think with just conversations about sensitive subject matters, it will really help. So just start off small within your circle. You know, if you see someone that's struggling a little bit, don't feel nervous. Just start the conversation. You never know how you can help somebody else. You know, we're still learning. We're not experts. You know, thank you all so much for participating in this journey with us. And as I said, we don't know where God is going to take this. This is just the beginning. And we wanted to start it off small with family and friends. So we love you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
for
you.
Thank you.
Great job. Great job, TC and Tony.
Yes,
You did
great
good.
job.